We've talked about characters, we've talked about story, and now we got to talk about world building. Like, that's just the next logical step. So, welcome to Panels in Progress, a channel about making comics and learning through the process. And in today's video, it's all about world building, and hopefully we can demystify some of the things and make our worlds, our stories, all the better for it. I'm Chris, and before we even get started, tell me, what world are you absolutely in love with? Which world would you want to live in, and why? I'm thinking about all the stories that I am watching and reading, and to be honest, I don't want to live in any of those worlds. I love House of Dragons, Game of Thrones. I don't want to live in that world. I'm reading a book series called The Hierarchy, The Will of the Many, The Strength of the Few. The world seems interesting, but I also don't want to live in those worlds. Actually, I feel like most of the worlds I don't want to live in for one reason or another. Maybe I'm just reading too many dark, decrepit, no. Maybe I'm just reading too many places that I know I might end up getting killed in those worlds. So, yeah. And maybe I'd want to live in the Witch Hat Atelier world, but then again, if I'm not a witch, am I really having fun because everyone else is just normal? So I don't know. Yeah, but let me know in the comment section below what's your favorite world and why you would want to live in it. Alright, so when we talk about world building, most people just go straight to the obvious. We think about the maps of a world, we think about the location, the magic system, and things like that, but it's more to world building than just the aesthetics of that world. Great world building might not even feel fantastical, and it doesn't necessarily have to be. World building can take place in a non-fantasy world just as easily as it could take place in a fantasy world. But great or amazing world building gets the reader or the watcher to either want to experience whatever is happening or it has them asking questions about the world itself. How does it work? Why does it work that way? How do the people live in this manner? It gets the person experiencing the artwork to really engage with it in a deeper way beyond just the story that the hero is experiencing. And you could say that that might have something to do with the lore of the story, the lore of the world, but I think it goes a little bit deeper than that. Before we get any deeper, let's talk about it. What is lore? Let's define it and see how it's different from world building itself. Looks like fantasy lore refers to accumulated myths, histories, legends, and world rules of fictional universes. While world building sets up the physical boundaries and magic systems of a story, lore provides the flesh and blood, the historical background, ancient traditions, cultural beliefs, and gives everything depth. So lore can be history, mythology, geography, politics, or just the backstory. I like to think of lore as the history, the mythology, what the people believed, what they think the gods believed, or what that one cave in the far distance is, what's the folklore around it, that sort of thing. Whereas the world building is kind of how does things work within the world. It doesn't sound as fancy, but it is equally important. And I can't say that one is better than the other or one is needed and not the other. I think it depends on the type of story that you're trying to tell, but all of it could be useful just depending on your story. Getting back to great world building makes the reader or the viewer want to know more. I mean, I know that when I was reading The Promised Neverland and we first found out about this seemingly innocent orphanage and all these kids, and they're all excited about getting adopted. One little girl is finally getting adopted, and everything about those first pages, you wouldn't even know that something was off. Even though, like, it did seem too perfect, just because if these are all orphan kids, why do they have these barcode numbers across their neck, these stamps across their neck? That is strange. And when the big reveal came about they were being sold to be eaten as food, spoiler alert, I guess I should have said that first, but that single moment made me want to know more about the world. What does it mean that this orphanage has some sort of contract or obligation to give kids to demons for food? Like, a million questions sprouted just from that one moment. That's what I would call good world building. They didn't dump a lot of information on me. They basically just told a story, set up a situation, and let me ask the questions. And then through the story, they started to reveal more about the world. Another great example is Something is Killing the Children. When those kids were getting ripped apart, another spoiler alert, but Something is Killing the Children. The kids are the only ones that can see the monsters. They're the only ones that can see the creatures, whereas all of the adults can only see the aftermath of what has been destroyed. And I think when you get a person who is obviously not a kid coming in to attack these monsters, it makes you want to know, like, okay, how come she can still see the monster? She's seemingly an adult. How does that work? And when you see the mask and what that means, like, you have questions like, what does this mask mean? Who are these special hunters? Who are these people? That type of world building made me want to know more. Whereas once you get further into both of these stories, that's when you start getting more about the lore and what happened in the past and how the Order of St. George was created and why there is a contract between demons and humans, and all of it's still very interesting, but the story is what made me want those answers. And then once they provided that answer, that's what gave me the lore. If they had just provided everything in the beginning, a long time ago, demons and humans made a contract with each other because blah 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 at the very beginning of the story, well, that takes away all the curiosity that comes with the story. It takes the wind from the sails of your story, from what makes it interesting, what makes the world interesting, what makes the world different. I don't know if you guys read Dresden Files, but Dresden Files does something similar with the real world. It has Chicago, where the first several books take place in Chicago, and then you learn that Chicago has a supernatural society within it, above it, below it, like it's integrated, but those who know, and all the normal people have no idea that all of these magical beings are around them and with them at all times. They're just unaware of it. And I think that Jim Butcher did a great job integrating those two and introducing you into a new world with using our world. And in the same vein, Harry Potter does it as well, where London is connected through the magical world, but there's a different world. It's like a parallel. There's another book series too, I can't remember the name. I think it's A Darker Shade of Magic or something like that, where there's two versions of London and they are colored differently. I thought that was also a unique way to build a world alongside our world. So remember, world building doesn't mean just fantasy worlds, just horror worlds, or science fiction worlds. World building can be using our world, but adding different elements in it to tell our story. And while we're on the topic of fantasy world building, let's go a little bit deeper in that category. The great thing about fantasy or fiction world building in general is that you can set up different scenarios with your story. Depending on what's going on with your story, you can take a closer look at systems, rules, histories, creatures, different things. Fantasy is I think the reason why I love fantasy so much is that it's a genre that you can use to explore any topic you really want to explore, just as long as you do the work beforehand. And I know that it seems like I'm talking a lot about the writing portion of this, but I think, and I've said this in previous podcasts, that the writing of a story, like the more work you do within the writing, the easier it's going to be to draw your world or design your world, because you've already got the fundamentals, you've got the foundation of what that world is going to sit on top of. But your world building should be really tailor-made for the character and the story that you're trying to tell. I'm going to use Brandon Sanderson's book, The Mistborn Trilogy, because I know that in his writing class, he talks about how him creating, like he was driving through this foggy overpass or something like that, and the fog was so thick he couldn't see through it to drive, and that kind of sparked this idea of a world built around this mist and what that could mean. And that example is a great way of using your world to help tell a story. Like, your world should provide the limitations and the expectations and the boundaries for your character to explore. And I think that's why I promote starting with writing, starting with the foundation before we go to the design, because sometimes as artists, when we design things, we do go for what's cool, but it doesn't necessarily have a point to it. Like, it's cool and it looks cool just for the sake of being cool, instead of, oh, there's a reason why buildings are shaped this way. Oh, there's a reason why the armor works this way. Or there's a reason why this side of town is different from that side of town. Like, having the reasons why things exist, it's only going to help complete your story. It's going to help bring these elements together to make the world feel actually lived in and thought of. But yeah, if it's only nicely designed, but there's no point to it, then it could feel very superficial and shallow to the reader. It looks like you did the work, but they might not feel that you did the work if the characters and the story itself don't help along the fact that that world is the way it is. Let's talk about One Piece as an example. One Piece is a huge world. There is a lot of world building, there's a lot of lore, there's so many different characters. Every island has its own type of people, culture, rules, understandings. It can be massive. It's because of all those things that once the characters get to those islands, they have to act differently. Yes, they are themselves, but now it introduces new problems because what they already believe or are planning to do might conflict with those people who are actually on that island. And that's where the story comes to show you why that island is the way it is, why those people is the way it is. Now, I am a One Piece silent observer. I love everything about the idea and the story, but I haven't actually read the manga, and I've only watched like maybe the first 2 seasons of One Piece. I understand those older episodes are kind of hard to get through, but the idea that Ishiro Oda has managed to enrich this world for as long as he has is just simply amazing, and definitely a masterclass in not only world building, but character building as well. Full Metal Alchemist is a different example where the magic system of alchemy, it has its own rules, it has its limitations, and it has its consequences. And because of those details, the characters suffer the consequences of that alchemy. And that's why our characters, Elric and Alphonse, when they pay that consequence for using alchemy, like, we feel that. We know that this world does not play. There is no special exceptions for this world. And I mean, there's other parts of Alchemist that, of Full Metal Alchemist, that it's like, man, this is a tough world. I also would not want to live in this world, even though it is very cool. Attack on Titan is our third example. The wall that is there. that wall is not just for aesthetics. That wall is there for a reason, obviously, to keep out titans, but it also creates a hierarchy. The walls separate the subcategories of people. There is laws, there's regulations, there is fear between the walls at varying levels depending on which wall you're behind. Like, that wall, it's a simple design for world building, but it too has a purpose. And then we can use Avatar: The Last Airbender. Let's stick with the cartoon, but the 4 nations, earth, air, fire, water, all of those categories, those elements, each has their own culture, and each has a different method of seeing the world, living in the world, and being in the world. And what's interesting is when those two cultures come together, they clash sometimes, or sometimes they work together. It's really amazing how they were able to build the world on such a simple foundation of what would it mean to live in a fire nation? What would it mean to live in the Earth Kingdom? And even with the water tribes, there is a southern water tribe and there is a northern water tribe, and there's a division amongst how they see life and how they handle things. I guess what I'm saying to all of this is that your world building should have a point beyond the fact that it looks cool. Your world building should have a purpose to your story. Everything that we talk about in this episode, previous episodes, all of it always comes back to story, because of how story is the primary point of why we're making comics, is to tell a story. And when you're building that world, the number one question you should be thinking is, what would it be like to live in this world? How do the rich act in this world? How do the poor act in this world? If that's important to your characters. Like, remember, keep your story at the center of your world building, and then you branch out from there. Okay, so we talked about fantasy world building, but let's talk about non-fantasy world building. Not everybody wants to build a fantasy world. Not everybody wants to build a fictitious world. Sometimes you just want a place that's grounded in reality, and you want to tell a real story that happens there. And that place or that setting could be a school or an office building or a gas station or whatever. It can be anywhere. It can be a particular city. It can be a particular country. It doesn't necessarily have to be fantasy based. You can do world building within our world. And for those of you who might be afraid to actually start world building, using your world or something from your life and building on top of that could be the best way to kind of step your foot into world building, because you've given yourself something you're familiar with, and then you just change little things about it depending on what your story is. I'm probably going to say that like 100 more times, depending on what your story is. So for instance, I'm creating a story that it's in its own world, but it takes place in a school. So with the school setting, I know that there's certain things I have to think about that are just related to schools. Like, what's the teaching system like? How do the teachers handle the classes? Are the classes big? Are they small? How's the school run? Is there free thinking in this school, or is it very structured? Like, there's a lot to think about. Is there uniforms? Are there not uniforms? And thinking about these things, it doesn't seem like that big of a deal, but because I know that my story, at least 50% of it, is going to take place in a school, this is something I consider things I need to know. Now, before I even get into our examples for non-fantasy world building, when I say build something or world build for things that I need to know, it means that whatever you're world building, sometimes this information is not something you're going to put into your story. You don't need to info dump every little detail. Just because we build it doesn't mean that it actually has to go into the story. Sometimes we're building it just so we can have an understanding of how it works. And so we can understand how the characters understand it. Because if you don't understand how it works, how's the characters gonna understand? They could be talking about something and not have any clue what they're talking about because you don't know what you're talking about. And sometimes those types of details can pull you out of the story. Like I said, depending on the story. Say it with me. Depending on the story. So let's get to these examples. Let's start with Miles Morales and Brooklyn. Miles Morales, Brooklyn, and Peter Parker and New York City. These are similar characters, but also very different. The location is still New York. However, Miles' version of New York is vastly different than Peter's version of New York. Miles' neighborhood is different because there's a different culture. There's a blend of Black and Mexican, or Black and Latino. There's graffiti. There's just different. It's a different type of New York. It's one that Miles fits into perfectly. Whereas in Peter's New York, it's different. But they both have similar problems, similar issues. But it's a great example of using the city to your advantage. Making the city mold to your character and how their world reacts to it. I used this example earlier, which was Dresden Files with Harry Dresden and Chicago, and how Chicago is its normal city. But what I like about Jim's stories is that as he's explaining the world, Harry is moving through the world and he will say a location, a street, and he'll say something to the effect of, what people don't know is that there is a magical ley line that runs underneath Chicago. And he has this interesting way of bridging the gap between magical and real and putting them together in a way that I think he does really well. If you also think about it, most of these stories that we read in manga, or at least most of the ones I've read in manga, most of the characters, they live in Japan. Some part of Japan. Japan has many different cities, many different areas, but Japan is their home. So the stories take place there. Kind of like back in the day, all of Marvel's characters all took place in New York. Like, you don't have to use a fantastical world. You can use our world, your neighborhood, and spruce it up a bit. You can use your school, your office. You can use our planet if you want. I mean, everyone uses Earth, or a lot of people use Earth, but you don't have to. I guess I'm saying that it's very freeing to know that you have the ability to create your own world, but you also have the ability to use our world for inspiration and build upon it. Now, instead of giving you guys some hardcore questions or things that could possibly help you world build, I really just want to point you into the direction of some channels that will help you do some world building. That first channel is definitely Brandon Sanderson's writing class, where he specifically takes like 1 or 2 classes about world building. He has some really great ideas about how to determine how much you need to build. He speaks about this iceberg effect, that if you do enough of the world building, the reader will believe that you have done all of the world building. And that's kind of the limit, or the expectation that you want to give yourself, is that you want to do just enough to tell the story to the best of your ability, but not too much that you kind of get lost in the weeds. And speaking of getting lost in the weeds, we have to talk about something that is affecting a lot of people. This disease has killed more stories than it has created. It has paralyzed many an artist. And that disease is world builder's disease. World builder's disease is the tendency to become so consumed with crafting the history, geography, cultures, rules, fictional universes that a creator spends more time world building than actually writing their story. And I can't say like I have not survived it because I got caught with world builder's disease. It's a story that I'm still working on and I'm now rebuilding from the ground. But basically, I've done it. I'm sure you might have done it. Like a lot of people get stuck in it. It's where they start building this world and it starts off simple. It starts off so innocent. You know, you build a place and a location and you build the buildings and the school, the hierarchy of the government, how it all works. Then you start thinking about, oh, well, there's classes in this world. There's a rich class, there's a middle class, there's a poor class, and now there's also this class we consider them a ghost class because they have no class. And then you think about, well, okay, if they live in this world, what is the weather like? What is the climate like? And then you start to think about, well, how would people do their export and importation on this island or this world if they lived in it? And as you can see, like, it starts off so simple. It starts off so simple to just ask one question and answer a question. And because you answered that question, it leads to another question. And then before you know it, you've spent a year, 2 years, 3 years, God forbid, 5 or 10 years building the perfect world, but you never made a page. You never made your story. You never even got to the story because now you can't even figure out what characters would be best to go in this world. Like, yeah, world builder's disease is a real thing that is affecting many. And we gotta stop it. The only way to prevent it is to make sure that you write your story, the story you want to tell. Even if you don't have to flesh it out completely, you just need to know like the highlights of the beginning, the middle, inciting incident, the climax, the conclusion. Then make sure that whatever world building elements that you believe that you have to create tie directly back to that story. Because if it doesn't tie directly back to the story, then you're just going to spiral. And you might never start telling your actual story. Or worse, the world building makes you decide that you need to do some other type of story because the story that you originally started with is no longer good enough. Don't get stuck in world builder's disease. If anything, if you can skip it, at least don't make it your top priority. Make it your second or third priority. Should world building happen before you draw? Yes, I do agree that it should happen before you draw. But limit yourself. I mean, this is a cautionary tale, guys. Like, I'm telling you this because it happened to me. Alright, like, you guys don't believe me, but like, I have this binder full of world building. These stuck together legal pads. I've got this notebook. I've got so many notebooks of world building for this story that I want to tell. And like, I got to a point where I was in the government system and like I needed to build a little bit of that governmental system, but not everything about it. And once I realized I had gone off into the weeds, like I had to just scratch it. I was like, okay, I gotta stop the madness because I could not get out of the forest. Like I was in there deep and I just could not get out. So this is me warning you, please don't go too deep into world building. Just what you need. Get what you need and get out. Treat it like a store run. You got $20, get into the store and get out. So to wrap this all up, world building is important. Just make sure that it relates to the story and you're going to be okay. Just remember, story first, everything else second. Just remember, world building is fun. It's an important thing to do. It's going to give so much wealth and life to your story. But make sure that you actually take care of doing the story first. Write the story first, then work on the world building. I asked at the beginning of the video, but I'm going to ask again in the comment section below. Let me know, what world would you guys want to live in? What's a good world? Like, or even if it's not a good world, it's just some world that you're like curious to get into. Like, what world would that be? And I think I said Witch Hat Atelier in the beginning, but I would want to be on the witch's side. I mean, who wouldn't want to do magic? But I happened to glance over and I was like, you know what? My Hero Academia probably wouldn't be too bad either. Everyone gets a quirk. I mean, hell, the main character is the only one who happens to be quirkless. So my odds of getting a quirk would be pretty cool. But, man, with my luck, it'd probably be a lame superpower. But regardless, hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you want to check out my comics, links in the description below to my comics, my Patreon, everything. And until next time, guys, let's make some comics.